Hello guys, Fourfinger here, and I just wanted to go over the build that I've been playing in the last 10 days. I did clear all of the end game that my PC can handle. What I mean by that is I have like everything set on low, but there are certain mechanics and fights where I just freeze and I can't really play it. So until I get a better PC in January, I have two handicaps, one finger less and no PC. But I still did my best. So when it comes to the clearing stuff, I did clear Breach on the hardest difficulty, Expedition no problem, Arbiter, simple. Only things I can do is Delirium and Ritual. Reason for is I just crash and die. I come in, I start the fight, I freeze and die. I can't play it. When it comes to the King in the Mists, I can do him. I just lag a lot. I have to like play with slideshows. So for the first three difficulties, it was easy because I could just burst him down in like 3 seconds and I didn't have to play. But now when I actually have to avoid stuff and I'm lagging, it's actually not possible for me to get the last point, like I said, till January. After that, everything is going to be easily clearable with this build because it's really OP. Now, let's get into how the build works and let's start with gems. So before we get into our skill setup, let me know if you guys need a build planner and I can post it in the description. I will be using Call of the Brotherhood, and this ring effectively converts all of your lightning damage into cold, and I'm doing this for 3 reasons. Reason number 1, Herald of Ice is probably one of the best AoE clearing abilities in the game. It's just really good. Now you might be wondering why not just use that chill ring with Shatter's enemies. Is because I just love cold damage a lot more in the end game, because I already have free shock from Elemental Invocation, like 35% free shock. And when you get to those Uber bosses on the last difficulty, they have millions of HP, so having all your damage being cold is just gonna make them a lot easier to freeze. So that's the main reasons why I like this. Also, it's so much security when it comes to mapping. Like, you use one storm wave, everything is frozen and then shattered and dead. It's like really safe. So let's just get into the skills and how they work. So first of all, let's get charge stuff out of the way. This is going to buff you and give you extra damage. And then on the side, every time you hit, it's gonna send shockwaves, which in fact are gonna be hitting the bell. And then the bell is also gonna be proccing, so there's like a lot of synergy between those two. I'm supporting it with persistence, 40% more duration, 25% more elemental damage but no ailments, but other skills are inflicting ailments anyway, so this is not important, because charge stuff is only going to be minor percent of our damage. We're running Execute, which is, like, we're also like really starved with support gems, and like I said, because this skill isn't really that important when it comes to damage itself, this is effectively like 40% more when the target is under 35% HP, it's okay to have. Same thing for Rising Tempest, 12% more elemental damage for each skill used recently of a different elemental type. I'm not sure if elemental invocation counts towards that goal, probably not, but maybe it does, because it has lightning, cold and fire, which could give 36, but even if it's 12, like I said, it doesn't really matter too much. And finally, Culling Strike. I like to look at this just as like 5% more damage on bosses. Like, mobs are already getting shattered, so you don't really need to cull mobs, like normal ones. And when it comes to bosses, 5% is like, just at the end to have, and we have no other better links, so it's just there. When it comes to the ability you're gonna be using most of the time, it's gonna be Stormwave. You're gonna be mapping with this is gonna be your main ability for like maps. Only once you come into like uniques and bosses, you're gonna be running your Tempest Flurry, Tempest Bell, and Elemental Invocation. But let's finish the Stormwave first. So I'm going with Ice Bite, which gives us 35% of damage as cold damage, and since you're freezing mobs in one hit in maps, it's always up 35% extra damage, no issues. 25% more weapon elemental damage, straightforward. The further you are away from the enemies, more damage. Heft, this is one of those weird support gems that kind of works even though after conversion, because they said in PoE 2 that conversion will happen and then we're gonna get the scale increases, but somehow the cold damage still gets scaled, even though it's scaling physical maximum damage, it still scales the cold as well. So keep in mind, you can use this, it's really good. And then Ambush, because we do run 54% crit, I'm planning to get to 70 eventually. I'll explain how later on. But this makes it we have 100% crit, because we have 53%, and then we have like 100% more, which doubles that, which is effectively 106%, but that's just 100. So every time you hit a mob that's full on HP, you instantly crit it, and this is amazing for mapping, because you just one-shot mobs, and then they shatter with the Herald of Ice, which I'm running with Cold Mastery, Magnified Effect, and Inevitable Critical. Like I said, we have no other free gems to boost this, but those are all like really useful, especially more Area of Effect combined with Quality. On Herald of Ice you get decent, let me see how much yards do we have. I think it's Where is it? It should say somewhere around here. 2.5 meter explosion radius. It's really, really nice to have. So moving on. So we talked about Stormwave, we talked about Herald. Now let's go over our single target. So let's say you run into the boss now. What do? You first go in, you hit 4 times with Tempest Flurry, then you place down the bell, and then you use Elemental Invocation after. Let's go over the support link so you understand why we do it in this order. First of all, we have Martial Tempo, more attack speed. This is useful both for the damage of the Tempest Flurry, buffs it a lot, but also to hit Bell more times, so effectively making Bell do more damage. Then you have Cold Infusion, 25% extra cold damage, but not less fire and lightning, but since we have no fire and lightning, it's just straight up cold. We have Close Combat, because we're always gonna be hitting like literally from inside the boss, it's gonna be like 24 to 25% more attack damage, pretty straightforward. Concentrated effect is really useful, it brings from 61 to 85k on my tooltip. It's like 40% more area damage, but 50% less area of effect. But since you're literally in the boss phase when you're hitting him, we have no downside, it's just free damage. And finally, Inspiration. You might not need Inspiration because Soul Thief does like bleach a lot of mana because this is mostly physical. But in general, if you do struggle a bit, you can run Inspiration, especially once you get like 21 level gems and stuff like that. So keep that in mind. Now, once you start hitting the boss, like we said, you saw the gems, we put the bell, and what the bell does is every time we hit the bell, it gives us free rage, but because we're gonna be hitting it with multiple sources, you're gonna get 30 rage in like seconds. And every rage you get is like 1% more damage, right? So you have rage guns, 1% more attack damage per 1 rage. And since we're gonna get 30 in like this, it's free 30% more damage on all our abilities. Soul Thief, as we said before, leeches mana constantly, it's gonna be hitting quite a bit. Overabundance, main reason people are using this, we hit with both Eye of Winter, Ball of Lightning, Charge Staff, Tempest Flurry, so it's just gonna be proccing so much, it's gonna like be destroyed before like 3 seconds. And this also makes you be able to build combo points even while the one bell is active. So it's just, there's no downside, there's just upside from this. It's really amazing to have. I highly suggest you run this, especially if you're going Tempest Flurry with Charge Staff. And then finally, Heavy Swing. This is just 35% more physical damage on the bell. I should be getting 6 link as well, but I'll have to change some sockets around. If I do that, I'll make an update video, because Bell is probably gonna be doing the most damage. And the reason for that is, it's doing like 16k per hit, right? And you're gonna be hitting it with Tempest Flurry, Charge Stuff. Ball is gonna be hitting it like few times per second. Eye of Winter is gonna send out a bunch of shards, which each time that they hit, they're also gonna proc it. So Bell is just amazing. Like, you can even use multiple Bells. I'm just starved with the sockets, even though I'm running Tempest Whirl Unset Ring, so keep that in mind. So yeah, so the rotation is you hit few times, you place a bell with all those buffs, and then when you use Elemental Invocation, it sends Eye of Winter combined with Unleash, so it sends like 3 Eyes of Winter, which effectively, as long as the boss is like a bit larger, it's not like super small, you get 10% crit. Because critical weakness gives you 0.5% to critical chance per stack, and you can get it to 20 times. So it's 10% crit extra, which is really, really amazing. Then we run Overcharge and Ball Lightning combined with Lightning Warp. Now, how does this work? Let me just show you. You put Ball Lightning, right? And then you put in the other spell like Lightning Warp. So now, if you use the Ball Lightning, for example, let me put here, and then where is it, Lightning Warp. We press this, and this makes a shock round, and it's perma up. Doesn't matter if you use the Overcharge, which reduces the duration of the shock is permanently up, and it just makes it scale to 35%. Like, it's just an amazing combo, and you do it with press of one button, which is Elemental Invocation. So let me just put back all of those together. So we have Eye of Winter, Overcharge, Ball Lightning, and then we have Unleash and Lightning Warp. So 10% crit, 35% shock from the combination of those three, and I just don't think how this is so much free damage from one press of a button. It's just amazing to have. And on top of bringing 10% crit and 35% shock, you also hit the bell multiple times, which also scales damage even further. It's just so much synergy. And then finally, we have buffs and other auras. So I'm using Combat Frenzy to get my Frenzy charges, which get converted on the tree to power charges with the Resonance. And then you use that to proc your staff, so you actually scale the damage we talked about before. When it comes to Wind Dancer, this is just going to be scaling your evasion by a lot, and I'll get into that once we get into the gear, but amazing to have. I'm running it with Blind and with Maim, so when somebody does hit you, It's going to like proc the Gale Force, it's gonna knock them back, do some damage, and it's also gonna blind and slow them with the maim, so it's like decent to have. Grim Fist, this is pretty much for mapping, doesn't really help for bossing. Maybe some bosses like Breach, because you get double the energy shield before facing him at the start, but after that it's kind of useless. And I'm running Clarity for more mana regen, and Precision for more accuracy, because I have 3 spirits that I don't know what to do with. Ghost Dance, really amazing. It scales like with evasion, and every time you get hit, percent of the energy shield gets restored. Like 5% of the evasion you have gets restored to your energy shield. Great to have. I'm running Cannibalism. If you ever like drop the energy shield, it just kill few minions, it instantly heals your HP back up. Life recovery, 30% more life recovery. This is amazing because I'm running Eternal Youth. This makes it so that Flask recharge energy shield, and this should be a must-have for all monks. Trust me, this is amazing because your life recharges whenever it's like behind energy shield, so it's not an issue. And most of the time, if you go under and you lose all energy shield because of a debuff or ignite or whatever, you're stuck on only 2.2k HP and you're vulnerable to one-shots, and you don't want that. If you use this, you can just pop the flask, you get to like really high amounts, and then you pop stuff like we said in the skill tree, which gives you like 30% increased recovery, and it just fully heals my energy shield. It's amazing combination to have, trust me. Fast forward, this just makes it so that they appear faster. So instead of every 15 seconds, it's gonna be happening every 2.2 seconds. You get one stack. So when you do get hit, you restore energy shield as well. Great synergies. Herald of Ice, straightforward, as we said before, it's your clearing ability. Cold Mastery, Magnified Effect, Inevitable Critical. So yeah, a lot of synergy in this build. If you have any question on how certain mechanics work, let me know, I'll be happy to explain. But this should be enough for now, so let's jump into our skill tree. So when it comes to a skill tree, I'm using a bit of a different Ascendancy setup. I'm of course going for Protect Me from Harm, and this is really amazing, but combining it with Acrobatics, you have 70% less, and then 40% less from here, which is 110% less evasion, which makes me have like only 72% evasion, which isn't terrible, because now I can evade all hits. Like even the Arbiter orbs that explode, I can avoid them because it works with Acrobatics, and then on top of it I have like 64 armor reduction. If I just remove this node from the tree, let me just show you, refund passives, and then we go for this, sorry, my bad, refund passives, and if you remove this one, just check how high my evasion actually goes. I go to 90 and 85%, I have 26k. But because it's so useful to be able to dodge everything with the evasion, running those two combined is just amazing. Like for bossing, it's really good. And especially for those death effects, like you remember how monks were really susceptible to dying to multiple like death effects? This solves that issue, it's so good. So that's the setup I'm running here. Of course I'm running I Am the Blizzard. This is pretty much just more damage. And then finally I'm not running the Unbound Avatar, even though it's really good for proccing certain stuff on bosses, because I already have elements without too many issues, and I don't have to invest anything into pen and exposures, because most of like 80% of my damage comes from critical strikes, and this ignores elemental resistances, just makes this really OP for my build. I don't need any exposures, any pen, I can just invest in other stuff, so I think it might be a bit better than going with Unbound Avatar and then having to scale other stuff. Especially because, like I said, I'm really starved with the gem sockets, I can't really put more stuff in. So really keep that in mind. When it comes to other stuff, this is pretty straightforward monk build. We start with the general evasion shield, more critical damage from crits, all of that good stuff. Most important stuff that I'm using, like I said, we use this to proc our charge stuff. We use this to use Flask on our energy shield, which is really important, so we're always on like 4k plus effective pool. A lot of crit, we're scaling crit from all the sources, like as much as humanly possible, crit damage bonus, critical hit. Then we come to this part, we get Acrobatics, we get the Herald cold damage increase, really helpful to have, a lot of critical as well from these nodes. We have evasion, we need a lot of evasion because, like I said, our evasion gets like removed by quite a bit, and if you want to run both of those, you really need to invest into evasion, which is why I also found jewels with like crit damage bonus, elemental damage, evasion, like pretty much all of them are similar. Damage, critical damage, evasion, so on and so forth. And yeah, you come here, you get some melee damage. You don't really need strike range, but 25% melee damage is good because we don't really have that many increases on the tree. Besides like here and this part, it's mostly just critical multipliers. So we just kill really well with that. So that should be our skill tree, and let's just go over the gear at last. When it comes to gear, because we are running Call of the Brotherhood, we can have a little bit more freedom when searching for weapons. You can get either lightning or cold like for a third like prefix if you don't find elemental damage with attack skills, because they're pretty expensive. And keep in mind that everything that is on the weapon is local, which means if you find something like to 20% more critical damage, it's not going to just be added to critical damage bonus, it's actually going to multiply this number. So if you have 20% on the weapon here, it's going to take 478, and then it's going to multiply it by 1.2, which is really good to know, so keep that in mind. When it comes to the helmet, I'm running a bunch of energy shield, life, and resistances, with also some intellect for my attribute requirements. When it comes to amulet, also a bunch of defenses, and that's pretty much it. When it comes to this ring, I really need the unset ring to run all the setup that I want to in my build, so this one is necessary. I have a lot of damage from it, lightning gets converted to cold as we said, so a lot of cold damage, life, rarity, intelligence, and all res. So when it comes to chest, this is really low. It's only like 2.4k. I had 2.8k, but I sold it. I don't know why. I probably thought I wouldn't play monk that much longer. But if you get 2.8k chest, and then you combine it with stuff like bestial skin, which increases it by 100%, and then you also have this, which gives you one energy shield for every 12 evasion, you can see how this can scale really well. When it comes to other stuff, my build has a bunch of resistances and life, nothing too special. On the boots I had to compromise and take 25% increase, because I'm on the same currency for the next build I'm planning. Those are really decent, but if they had 30% movement they would be a lot better. Just normal boots. Now when it comes to hands, I replaced my Hands of Wisdom because it felt broken. It literally, I feel it's gonna get nerfed eventually. And if you do buy it, it's not that expensive. I just checked it, it's like 7 divines, actually a bit more. Let's say it's like 10 divines. It's really not too expensive to get, especially with how much it scales your build. Because if you scale intelligence to like 200, which is really easy, because you already need like 180 for your skill gems, you get like 20 times to 200 lightning damage. I mean 20 to 200 lightning damage. I mean that's just, I don't know, it's insane to me, if you ask me. Because you already scale with other stuff, it's just insane. When it comes to other stuff, I'm using this huge flask, which, like we said before, is combined with Eternal Youth, which makes me instantly recover my energy shield, and then life just recharges in the background, really great to have. Mana also corrupted to 23, you don't really need this too often, because when I said before, we are running a Soul Thief on bosses, so you're not really mana starved, but you can get mana starved from spamming the Storm Wave. Good thing is you don't spam it in mobs, you just run, you hit once, mobs die, you hit once, mobs die, it's just like really not necessary. I am running immunity to freeze. I mean, you rarely get frozen, but once you do it sucks, so I just like having this here. So this should be the gear. Now when it comes to weapon switching, I've tried a bunch of stuff but nothing works, because all of my abilities have to be on the weapon set base one. I try getting power charges and then scaling them to like 7, so I can get 7 stacks for my charge stuff, but unfortunately as soon as you come back from it, it goes back to original 3, it doesn't like keep the 7. So this has to be on weapon 1 because it scales with damage, same for this. Charge stuff, I said before, you can't really get the power charges to scale back to weapon 1 from weapon 2. Tempest Bell, same thing, you could get like, I mean we already have physical damage weapon, so no need to get the second one. You have to keep this on weapon 1 because if you switch to weapon 2 it's not gonna get any energy, and then all the other ones are auras, so I have no reason to use weapon set on this character. If I did use some manual curses and stuff like that, it would be useful, but right now I just don't see any point in like getting the weapon sets, unfortunately. Because everything has to be on scaling with the weapon 1, or otherwise it just loses value. So, I think that's pretty much it. I covered all the gear, gems and passive tree. If you have any extra questions, let me know, but overall the whole idea of the build is you get a really good weapon, you scale the synergies from the Herald of Ice clearing with the Storm Wave, it just pops the entire maps, no problem. Tempest Bell, Tempest Flurry, Eye of Winter and Ball Lightning just explode bosses, and then you have a lot of like evasions from stuff like acrobatics, and from this you get physical damage reduction. It's just overall a lot of synergy in the monk. So yeah guys, hopefully you did like this video. If you have any questions let me know, and like I said, I'll be happy to post build planner if you guys need it. So thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.